A boy living his life thrown into a world hidden amongst his own. How well does he deal with his new reality? Does he continue like nothing happened? Does he rise to the occasion? Does he fall to his new foes? Maybe, as a demigod, he can coast his way through the story, learning nothing and not changing, while his ocean dad carries him in important scenes. If you couldn't tell, today I'll be leading you through Percy Jackson and the Olympians' The Lightning Thief, a movie adapted from the book of the same name. This movie was released in 2010, 5 years after the book was published. I'll be going through the loyalty to the source material, the story being told, respect for the characters, and the creator's involvement. In the book, the list of events we go through includes a museum trip, school, home, Camp Half-Blood, Aunty Em's, St. Louis, meeting a god, the Lotus Hotel and Casino, LA, the Underworld, the beach, the scene of the crime, and back to camp. Those are around the major events that are supposed to happen, and the order of some of these events is shifted, and some others are completely erased in this movie. We already start off with something not in the book, a prologue sequence that tells us information that we're supposed to learn later. We get Poseidon coming out of the water in giant form, making eye contact with a fisherman, already circumventing the entirety of the secret world aspects of the story. He then has a conversation with Zeus on top of the Empire State Building, where he calls him omnipotent. Zeus then says he knows about Percy and threatens to hurt him and start a war if Poseidon doesn't give him back his bolt. Well, we're not supposed to know Poseidon is his dad right away, and neither should Zeus. The closest thing to a prologue in the book is where Percy starts off by warning you about reading a story you can't unlearn and how you should hope to not be like him, and he talks a bit about his troubles. But this prologue was weird and unnecessary, and again steals info that we're supposed to learn later on. But at least we'll get back on track now. Let's head over to where our story starts, the museum. We do not start great. The movie, for whatever reason, switches the museum and the school, so the following information might be a little disorientating, but you can thank the movie for that. At the museum, Percy's teacher, Mr. Brunner, is in a wheelchair and is leading a tour. Some other students are talking, and Percy shushes them. Later, when eating lunch with his friend Grover, they get bullied, and Percy's abilities activate for the first time, and the bully ends up in the fountain. His pre-algebra teacher, Mrs. Dodds, takes the bully's side and takes him inside to reprimand him, but that was a lie, and she turns into a fury, demanding he return something he stole. Brunner bursts in and throws Percy his pen, which turns into a sword, and he slays Dodds. After that moment, no one remembers her, and there is a new teacher in her place. Then they go back to school. How much of that makes it to the movie? Well, let's start off with the fact that they seem to be aged up about 4 years from 12 to 16. Poseidon appears, even though he doesn't show up until the end of the book, and he shows he's the god of telepathy. Brunner does lead a tour, but Percy is actively not paying attention and listening to music. Grover is on crutches. After being forced to read Greek that rearranges to English, Percy is taken into another room by his teacher, Miss Dodds, not Mrs. Dodds. She teleports to the top of some scaffolding to burst out of her skin, transforming into some weird winged demon, then she picks him up. She demands he return the bolt, even though in the book that's not what she's here for, or she'll eat his heart. Instead of just Brunner, Grover also rushes in, and the wheelchair man threatens to kill her. She crashes through a window, never to be seen again. That ends the parallels in the adaptation. It continues with Percy freaking out, and the other two plot to take him somewhere because he's not safe anymore. Brunner gives Percy a pen, and Grover takes him home. It was loyal to the shape of the story for the most part, but the end of the section goes down a different path though. Now in the book we can head over to school, or go back in time to start at school for the movie. Percy and the rest of his classmates make it back to their private school, and no one can remember Mrs. Dodds. He almost believes that he might have lost his mind, but Grover remembers her, and he is terrible about lying about it. We learn that Mr. Brunner is their Latin teacher and Percy's favorite, who has high expectations for the boy. Unfortunately, Percy will be expelled during his summer break, but before that, he overhears a conversation between Grover and Brunner about Dodds. There's also a horse. None of that makes it to the movie. He starts off at the bottom of a swimming pool where Grover, who isn't supposed to be on crutches, is timing him. This is supposed to allude to Poseidon being his father, which would work if the movie didn't already tell us. They're in a school that is seemingly very public, and Miss Dodds is their English teacher, and we see nothing of Mr. Brunner. Then, after we see his dyslexia, he goes home. The museum held a lot of moments that went along with the book, but the school seems to be directing the story entirely. Well, off to home. What comes next is going to be something. The movie splits up his returning home into two. Once after school, the other after the museum. If you put them together, it almost equals out what's supposed to happen. Percy rides home on a bus with Grover. At a stop, they see 3 old ladies cutting a stream. Percy doesn't understand, but is still startled by it. Grover understands they are the Fates, and they are making a statement that someone will die. Someone's life has literally been cut short. Percy ditches his friend in a restroom and makes it home, where his stepfather Gabe shakes him down for loose change. He waits for his mom to get home from work and goes on and on about how amazing she is. Sally gets home and she doesn't care about his expulsion and is just happy to see him. After placating Gabe, they take his car to their beach house. Percy tells us more about his mom and some of her sacrifices and losses, but also some of her defiances. She talks about his dad for a bit, he never mentions what happened at school, and they head to bed. He has a nightmare that is interrupted by Grover showing up, and he has goat legs. Sally knows something must have happened, and she drives them to a camp. Very little of this makes it. After school, he makes it home where Gabe has him against a wall and he starts pulling on his hair. And Sally just lets that happen. In the book, she would never allow Gabe to lay a hand on her son. She would kill him. He complains about his ADHD and dyslexia making him a loser, which in the book he never sees as that pathetically debilitating. After the museum, the boys scramble through the streets where Grover confesses to be Percy's protector. When they make it to the apartment the second time, they barge through the door, interrupting a poker game between Gabe and his friends. Sally is confused and Gabe is a little belligerent, causing Grover to hit him with his crutches and tell Sally that Percy needs to leave. Then they take his car and leave. If they chose to come home only once, they would have had more time to flesh out Sally's character, but they don't. Gabe is what Gabe needs to be, just not how he should be. Taking out the beach house isn't that bad, but Poseidon showing up already, cutting out their talk about him, and changing the school and the museum, along with everything else, are pretty good indicators of how well adapting the rest of this book is going to go. We're going to go through a very quick rundown of most of what happens getting to and at camp in no particular order. Sally drives the car and tries to tell Percy as much as possible. The car gets struck by lightning and flies off the road. Grover is knocked unconscious. A wild minotaur appears. They drag Grover and Sally tells him that she can't go with them. She gets grabbed and turned to dust. Percy activates his rage and kills the minotaur with one of its own horns, and it turns to dust. He drags Grover to the threshold. He passes out and sees a strange man and girl. That was just getting there. At camp, a girl judging how you sleep. Dionysus, the camp director, being jerky. Mr. Brunner is not a wheelchair man, but a centaur named Chiron. How invoking names is bad. Monsters don't really die and just respawn. The cabins arranged by gods and the kids living in the one that represent their parent. Hermes' cabin being full of unclaimed kids and Luke representing them. Bonding and touring with Annabeth. Ares bully children. Training time with Luke where more weird hinting stuff happens. The big three, Zeus, Poseidon, and Hades, not allowed to have kids after World War II. Thalia, daughter of Zeus, dying and being turned into a tree by her dad that protects the camp, who was a friend of Annabeth and Luke. The mist is a thing that hides the mythical by making them unseen or mundane to mortal eyes, and that's why no one remembered gods except for the mythical people. Food sacrifice. Toilet water strikes back. Capture the flag where Percy is used as bait for the bullies while Annabeth watches while invisible. Percy gets hurt, but once pushed into the water, he overpowers his attackers and his injuries heal. Annabeth figures out his godparent. A wild hellhound has appeared to attack Percy. Chiron snipes it with a bow. Percy is claimed by his father Poseidon. I think that's most of it. In the rest, he's sent to live alone in the Poseidon cabin and is treated a little differently, being a forbidden child with some weird prophecy about him or something. Nobody will talk about it. Chiron tells him that Zeus's master bolt has been stolen, and Old Lightning Head thinks Percy did it for his dad, with his whole not supposed to be existing thing he's got going on. Chiron believes Hades stole a bolt to make his brothers fight. Percy is sent up to the manhouse attic to get a prophecy from a decrepit mummy woman for his quest to retrieve the bolt before the summer solstice, or the whole world will be fried in a war with the gods. She imparts, "You shall go west and face the god who was turned. You shall find what was stolen and see it safely returned. You shall be betrayed by one who calls you a friend, and you shall fail to save what matters most in the end." Percy is concerned by the end of that, but Chiron informs him that prophecies have double meaning sometimes. By now, Percy's put together that his mom may not be dead and is in fact being held by Hades. Saving the world and getting his mom back in one shot is too good to pass up. He's allowed to take 2 people with him. He chooses Annabeth and Grover. Chiron gives him the only pen that is mightier than the sword, and Luke gives him flying shoes that Chiron advises against using. Flying in the sky, Zeus's domain, is a sure way to die, so Percy gives the shoes to Grover. They are taken to a bus station by the camp security guard, who's covered in eyes. Grover, as a satyr, can feel Percy's emotions about his mom and tells him that she married Gabe because he was so toxic that his smell covered up Percy's god smell, throwing off monsters from tracking him down. Then they get on a bus. Not even a quarter of that, not even a fifth of that, makes it to the movie, and these were the broad strokes of events. During the not frantic drive, Sally waits for hours to start talking, and I know it's hours because they're coming up to the summer solstice, the longest day. The sun is still up there, and she waits till the moon is high up in the sky before she starts to talk. She speedruns her way through the topics of him being weird and going to camp, and all this has to do with his father, whom Percy does not see in a good light. Her rant is interrupted by a flying cow, and then the car is flipped over when a wild minotaur appears. Grover now reveals he's part goat, not donkey, and kicks open a window so they can escape while the cow-throwing minotaur searches for them. Sally waits until they're at the threshold of Camp to now mention she can't enter, and the minotaur grabs her. It crushes her in the dust, and Percy uses the pen sword to stab it good, kills it with its own horn, and then passes out. Percy comes to in a medical tent where he's disturbed to find out Grover is still part goat, and that wasn't a dream. Grover takes him on a tour of camp where Percy is almost shot, and there are cabins just strung around the place, and they see a girl fighting whom he starts to drool over. Grover tells him that's Annabeth, a daughter of Athena, and she will kill him if he gives her too many weird looks, and she sees him looking. He then takes the young demigod to an area where a herd of wild centaurs are galloping free. One comes over and it's Mr. Brenner, or Chiron in their world. Grover eventually leaves them to do whatever with the daughters of Aphrodite. Chiron takes Percy to his own private knot house on the beach and is basically told Poseidon is his dad. He's told Zeus forbade his dad from seeing him and that his mom stayed with Gabe because his gross jerk smell covered up his godly smell, throwing off monsters from his scent. The centaur then takes Percy over to where a whole group of campers are, and Chiron asks them to stop all their activities and gather around. This is Percy Jackson. Percy is chosen by the Athena side for capture the flag, where he meets the team captain Luke, the opposition being the daughter of Athena, Annabeth, heading Team Ares against Athena. Percy follows Luke for a while until Luke fends off some enemies, and Percy stumbles into the flag, where Annabeth is part monkey and waiting in the trees. She shows that she's been waiting all her life to cut someone and has a crowd to show off her exploits. Psychic Dad chimes in and tells Percy to touch the nearby creek where the water flows over his body, healing all his wounds and giving him her power-up. He slices through some of the Ares team and Annabeth and gets the flag, where he is immediately celebrated. They have a huge dinner that night where the creepy girl who likes to cut people starts to creep on him. They have a nice conversation that is really interrupted by Satan appearing out of the bonfire. That's not Satan. No, that's what he looks like. What do you mean that's Hades? That's not Hades. I've seen many depictions of Hades, and I have not seen that. Let me look. I'm not seeing it. Chiron says it. Apparently, that's Hades wearing his Satan suit or something. He demands to speak to Percy and that he has his mother. Percy marches up to the god of the dead, yelling his mom is dead. Hades then shows him that he has her and says for him to deliver the bolt in exchange for her, and then disappears. Percy wants to do what the barbecue god is asking, but Chiron advises against it and says that they should go to Zeus, the god of understanding, and plead their case. Percy decides to sneak off in the middle of the night, and Grover is waiting for him. They have a short argument about, "You're not coming with me, yes I am," that is third-partied by Annabeth, who wants to go out in the world, probably to stab something. Before they head out, they go to Luke's tent for his help. Luke gives them a map of Persephone's pearls that will get them out of the Underworld. He also gives Percy a pair of flying shoes and a shield, telling Percy to fight his dad if they see him on the road. The movie does a speed run through camp, and we don't spend any time learning or caring about the camp or its people. Percy doesn't even train. He gets one fight where his dad carries him, and then he sneaks out to go fight Hades. It's understandable to an extent why they spent so little time here, but at least show some training or something. Do a montage. Why would they change Percy getting a sanctioned quest to him sneaking out? That was so unnecessary. Dionysus and Clarice, she's one of the bully children, were cut out for whatever reason, but they're not even alluded to. The story's been completely changed and only shares the names of people I can't. Well, off to a well-furnished garden. The trio rides the bus west for a while before their ride is interrupted by the Furies. Mrs. Dodds, or Electo as she's called, is back. They fend them off, but the fight leads to the bus exploding. As they make their escape, a random passenger takes a picture of Percy with his sword out. When they run into the nearby woods, Annabeth and Percy smell food that leads them to a garden emporium with strange statues outside. The owner invites them inside for food, but it turns out she's Medusa and they narrowly avoid being turned to stone. After a well-organized fight, they mail her head to Olympus and sleep outside. When they wake up, Grover talks to a dog and turns it in for money, then they take a train to Denver. The only real thing that survives the journey to the adaptation is Medusa and her emporium and Grover's uncle. They take a bus there on purpose, following the map. They grab some drachma, split to search for the pearl. Percy finds nothing, Grover finds his stoned uncle, and Annabeth runs into a frantic woman who drags her around the place. Grover meets up with Percy while Annabeth and that woman run into Medusa, and that woman gets turned to stone while she has a grip on the demigod. Percy leads her away while Grover frees Annabeth. Percy gets trapped by Medusa and she talks about her and his father's past love life. She handles him while her snakes are doing something. Dear God. As he almost opens his eyes for whatever reason, Annabeth and Grover show their plan to fight her with a truck and crash in. This gives Percy the chance to scurry away, sneak up behind her, and cut off her head. After grabbing the pearl she had and the free head lying around, they drive their newly found truck to the next destination on the map, Nashville. More of the age difference in the adaptation is shown here. They're not old enough to drive yet in the book. In fact, I don't think any of them have had the opportunity to learn it all in the movie, so how are they driving? The differences in the events that happen in the garden are obvious, but honestly not that bad. Medusa isn't that big of a problem. More one of the first adversaries the group faces together besides the Furies. This is the least offensive change of an enemy in the whole movie. It's not as cool as the book, but it gets the job done. Everything around Medusa, on the other hand, is terrible. Getting there is less perilous, and leaving is less world building. Continuing that trend, we go on to our next location, which is supposed to be St. Louis. So at this point in the book, they're on a train, and we see more about how the Greek world secretly lives among people. The group makes a stop in St. Louis because the Gateway Arch was built by a child of Athena, and Annabeth wants to see it because she's lived most of her life at camp and wants to see the world. She also wants to be an architect when she's older. They have a very terrifying conversation about how Hades can be even more invisible than Annabeth can and how he could be with them right now. Percy heads up in a separate group of people and ends up meeting Echidna and her chihuahua turned chimera son. Percy is badly hurt by the world's best boy and dives into the water below through a hole it made. When he hits the water, he's dry and a Nereid tells him to breathe. He can breathe underwater. She tells him to go to the Santa Monica Pier and he gets out of the water and the others find him. They see a broadcast that talks about him and shows a picture of him from the bus, but the sword looks all blurred. Now he and his friends are wanted for questioning about his mother's disappearance. They get back on the train and ride it the rest of the way to Denver. This is where I would tell you how the movie compares, but the movie doesn't go to St. Louis. They instead make their way to the great musical state of Tennessee to the unknown city of Nashville, which has a recreation of the Parthenon. Which is real, by the way. They decide to sleep at a motel for the night. Percy is doing his whole holding his breath underwater thing when Annabeth creeps up on him again, and he heals the bruise she got from when the stone woman was holding her earlier. She tells him that their parents hate each other and that there's a law forbidding gods from talking to their children, but she too has a psychic godparent. Grover calls them inside to say a news report calling his mom Sally Ugliano and his stepdad slandering him. And a cleaning lady then sees Medusa's severed head through the open window curtains. They drive to the Parthenon the next day, where Annabeth is in awe of her mother's statue, and they notice the pearls in her tiara. They wait in the restroom for everyone to leave, which is a place no security would ever check for stowaways, but when they come out, there are janitors around. Annabeth uses her stab-happy arsenal to knock them out. Percy puts on the flying shoes and gets on a video call with Luke, who instructs him how to use them. He barely manages to get the pearl. They have a short celebration that is interrupted by the now awake janitors who speak in unison, demanding the bowl. When Percy says he doesn't have it, they melt together into the Hydra and try to kill them. Percy has the amazing idea to cut its 5 heads off, and Grover cheers him on. The bro celebration is cut short by Annabeth reminding them both how the Hydra works. Now there are 10 heads. Percy is able to put it in a ball of water, and they book it to the door, which is locked. As the Hydra charges at them, Grover uses Medusa's head to turn it and its fire to stone. The only good thing I'd say here is that they stayed on theme of Greek, but that's about it. I don't know why they switched the Chimera out for the Hydra. Worse is, the Hydra is in the next book, and it seems like they wanted to make a franchise, so why would they steal a monster from the next movie? Just like the beginning of the movie, they allocate time to things that don't do much to elevate the story and take time away from the world-building aspects of the book. After all this, they're supposed to go to a diner and meet a god, but in the book, Annabeth talks about her strained relationship with her father and stepmother and how she ran away when she was 7. They talk through a remote camp, they stop at a diner. Ares gives them a side quest to retrieve a shield from a water park. Shenanigans where a rightfully freaked out Annabeth saves the day, then they come back with the shield. Ares tells them to get in the back of a semi transporting animals in inhumane conditions. He gives Percy a backpack with snacks, clothes, and money. Ares tells him that the entrance to the Underworld is in some place called DOA Recording Studios. Some of the staff of the diner take a picture of them. None of this makes it. They go to a diner where the weather report shows a world-ending war cloud front with a chance of, "Why are we even at this diner?" Anima says the gods are angry, and that they need to move on to the next location. The map shows their next stop is in Las Vegas. I don't understand why the movie even bothered coming to the diner. They should have just kept going. This was the worst parts in terms of adapting. At least with St. Louis, they ignored it. But we're moving on to Las Vegas. The group tries to take care of the animals in the truck, and Percy learns they can speak to things horse-shaped. Through a combination of feeling sorry for the creatures and Grover making some strong points, they let the animals out and ditch their ride. Grover puts a blessing on them so they reach the wild. They run into the nearest building, which happens to be the Lotus Hotel and Casino. Without paying, they are given a room and funds to play in the hotel. Time passes, and Percy meets someone who is decades out of time. He goes around asking others, and they have similar stories. He quickly rushes to the others to break them out of their trance, and they are offered more to stay, but they refuse and get in a cab. Percy left the backpack in the room, but he mysteriously has it again. They learn that they've been in there for days, and they only have one left to save the world, and take the cab to the pier. The broader strokes of this make it to the movie. They make it to the hotel, but instead of sacrificing their ride for animals and stumbling in, they chose to go there. Grover loves it, and the ladies. They eat some lotus flowers and their moods change and they forget why they came in the first place, while a siren sings in the background. They go through a montage of them enjoying the hotel and all it has to offer, periodically eating more flowers. So they do know to montages. Poseidon then chimes in, after a while, telling Percy not to eat a flower and his mind begins to clear. He gets many offers of more flowers, but he turns them down. He then meets a guy who sounds like he's out of time, and he is because it's from 1971, but he hasn't aged a day. On his way back to the others to warn them of his discovery, he spots the pearl in a random place and is insistently offered more flowers. One of the employees calls him by name and he quickly leaves. That employee speaks into a security earpiece and warns the rest of the staff that Percy is awake. He finds Annabeth and drags her to Grover, telling them that they need to leave. Grover is too enamored by the ladies around him, which causes Percy to splash a drink in his face. Percy rants about the flowers and they slowly realize what's happening. Security chases them while they book for the exit. They grab the pearl and then get in a winning car on display with the keys inside and drive out the doors. Annabeth puts together that that was the lair of the Lotus Eaters, and a sign informs them that they've been inside for days and have to get the bolt by tomorrow. The map shows their last stop is in Hollywood, and they speed through the desert. This was more loyal. The events inside are justifiable for not being the same, considering the flowers. The time or confusion of it feels around the same. How they get there and how they leave are the worst parts. They could have easily done a better job, but at this point we should be grateful for whatever we can get. Well, from one major city to another, off to LA. In the book, the group takes the cab to the pier. Percy jumps in the water and a shark takes him to meet the Nereid from earlier who gives him 3 pearls. They will transport him, and she says whatever comes from the ocean returns to the ocean. He makes it back to the others and they wander through LA and get chased by feral children into a store selling nothing but a good sleep. A forever sleep. They find the studio where an Italian suit-wearing Charon is guarding an elevator. They give him some drachma and promise to ask Hades for a raise for him. He rides the elevator with them, that turns into a boat, and he takes them to a place like an airport. The movie decides to give us a diner situation again, where none of the events happen, except for the location slightly. Grover drives to the Hollywood sign, and the radio talks about how a storm is covering out most of North America. Pulling up to the sign, they hop out and read some strange script that causes a hole to open up to the underworld. Entering, the entrance collapses behind them and they encounter Charon, the boatman, who says that they should die and come back. Grover tries to pay with cash and Charon burns it. Percy remembers the drachma from Medusa's and gives it to him. Then they take a comfortable boat ride. So they may have strayed just a little or a whole lot. So what if they barely acknowledge LA existed? At least it's in the movie. Look at St. Louis. Or not, I guess. So what if there's nothing that happens in the book remotely represented in the movie? The movie made it so they don't even need to go into the city. Some people might see this as a failure to adapt a story. Well, we move on to the Underworld. Actually, no. Beyond this point, the movie is no longer following the book. It would be easier to point out what they get close to. They talk with Hades and already have the bolt. Luke is a traitor. Percy goes to Olympus. The war is stopped. His mom is back. He goes back to camp. Technically, Gabe is divorced and dead. The Underworld is nothing like the one in the book, nor the events inside it. The movie skips out on Dog Whisperer Annabeth with Cerberus, the shoes kidnapping Grover into Tartarus. Persephone isn't supposed to be there. It skips out on the army of the undead, and nothing about Hades' helm that was also stolen. They didn't return to the ocean. No fight with Ares on the beach securing the bolt and the helm. No plane ride home. No solo hero's welcome for Percy on Olympus. No talk with his dad and uncle. Luke's betrayal is wholly not the same, and no, absolutely no Kronos. I had this script continue on for the rest of the movie, but it's not even worth comparing. I deleted over 2,000 words. The Underworld is terrible. There is no beach fight with a god, but a fight with a demigod in a city. Olympus is underwhelming. The reunion with Mom is misplaced and also underwhelming, and camp has been lame since the first time we saw it, and it hasn't improved in the meantime. Nothing happens at the end. No one fulfills their character arcs in the book, at least. Truly is a wonder as how this movie came out the way it did. Well, it's over. Had to end at some point. That was something bad. They should have called this movie something else and said it was inspired by the book. I mean, it feels like it has the shape of the story, but little filled in correctly. Like some alien not understanding our biology and getting our skin back right, but filling us with dirt. I can see the attempt, but they did a terrible job. They turned the more unique parts of the story into this bland, generic cookie cutter YA story that looked similar to all the others that were being adapted en masse at the time. When it comes to the source, I like the story. I wish I had given it a chance earlier and obsessed over it much more than I have. You should give it a chance yourself. It doesn't seem that hard to adapt. Most of its locations are based in reality, so the only thing I could see being really difficult would be the monsters and maybe the camp. I truly don't understand how the makers of this movie fumbled so much. They failed to capture what made it feel so special. I'll give it a 8.9 out of 30. Most of the time, they went to places they were meant to go, then rarely did what they were supposed to. Omnipotence. Omnipotence? You have to be joking. The whole intro is bad in so many ways, but why did you have to say omnipotence? Just to have the definition of the word, it means having great, almighty, or unlimited authority or power. If he has unlimited power, why does he need the bolt? Why doesn't he just take back the bolt himself? Why does he need the war? Why threaten Percy instead of just killing him? That line negates all the reasons this movie has to exist. In the book, the reason they have demigods do things is because of the rules preventing gods from doing things directly. The movie doesn't really have that. Nothing is stopping him. Okay, the whole forgetting about keeping their world secret gets old really fast. Poseidon exposes himself, so we're not hiding ourselves from mortals. Okay, then why are the Satyr and Centaur hiding themselves with disabilities? So we are hiding things. So why does a fully revealed Fury fly out in broad daylight in a busy city of about 8 million people? But we have Cam hidden away in a small corner of the world that is actively connected to the internet. Even though the original story found a way to get around stuff like that, that was interesting. But at least hell is hidden in Hollywood. But then you fight inside of that 8 million population city again. It was in the middle of the night, in the night of a city that never sleeps. At least the book had the miss to hide things or make people forget/misremember events. It was always there to fix everything that might be a plot hole in secrecy. The movie has nothing like that though. What is happening at this camp? Percy's cabin has no walls, and being the son of the god of the ocean does not make you immune to diseases and the elements. Percy will die if he lives here. There's a plot point that mentions how the gods are forbidden from interacting with their children, but they can make their cabin though? Annabeth is this little Miss Psycho who gets some sick pleasure out of the death by 1,000 cuts she's giving Percy, and no one stops her. She kind of feels like they mashed her and Clarice together. She is actively torturing a boy who came out of a 2-day knockout whose mother just died with no training, and no one, not Chiron, Luke, or Grover, steps in. They are so lucky water heals him. That was unknown information. Also, he's introduced to camp in the weirdest way. No one just goes in the middle of a group of people and introduces some random dude like he's some big celebrity. That's not how that works. We didn't introduce people the first time like, this is Michael Jackson. This is Scarlett Johansson. This is Winnie the Pooh. Why would they even know him? The amount of information cut out is atrocious, but putting that aside, it's still terrible. In the book, Percy spends about a week at camp, while in the movie, he's not even conscious for 24 hours there. The movie wanted to be in and out of there so fast. Honestly, if they were to cut out camp entirely and have Percy have some vision and him and Grover just ran into Annabeth, it would have served the same purpose and saved us time. Camp Half-Blood is pointless in this movie. I also don't understand why they made Chiron useless and stupid. He doesn't do anything, he doesn't mentor anyone, and he doesn't protect anyone either. His main contribution is being a terribly reduced exposition machine with no brain. He wants to have a talk with Zeus, and fully expects not to be destroyed on the spot because the gods, Zeus especially, have been known to be understanding and well-tempered. This guy must have gotten all his information from the Disney movie Hercules. I should also mention how Grover wants to grind up anything that moves, except Persephone? And I don't know if I should go into the fact that in the book he's technically in his 20s and everyone at camp is teenagers. In that scene with the daughters of Persephone, it doesn't look good. I just hope for the movie's sake they just made him the same age, because if they didn't think about that, if they didn't finagle that, it's its own problem. What's going on with Medusa and this woman? This frantic mess drags Annabeth around, who, mind you, is a demigod with the body and strength to slay monsters. The garden isn't even that big, so how she's lost makes no sense, and again, Annabeth should just overpower her and lead her to safety. While this woman is running around, she says that the scary unknown woman, Medusa, turned her husband to stone. If Medusa turned her husband to stone, then she knows Medusa exists, and because of pop culture, she knows how her abilities work. But for some reason, she decides to listen to the person who murdered the love of her life and open her eyes. That is, on top of knowing how her husband died and Annabeth telling her not to look at the Gorgon. I have to assume she was being tempted by Uma Thurman herself, who used her own power to turn the frantic woman into stone, and the actress that played her is dead. That is the only thing that makes sense. We all watched Uma Thurman murder someone on camera, and she got paid for it. Finding her with a truck is funny though. Here we are with the secrecy thing again. Nothing in this scene makes any sense. No sensible person would stay at a motel and have their curtains open for the whole world to see, least of all demigods who are trying to keep a low profile. Also, Medusa's head clearly has snakes on it. If that woman stopped long enough to register that it was a head, she also had enough time to see the snakes. Why would she think it's a real head and not a prop? Everything here makes me feel crazy. Oh, that news report? We'll get to that later. To some extent, going to a recreation of the Parthenon is cool, but stealing the Hydra from the next book ruins anything cool about it, though. There was no need to replace the Chimera, but they had a whole list of Greek monsters to pull from, and they chose this one. I just don't understand. I also don't understand how a stone gaze can fend off fire. Maybe I'm just stupid. Then there's the issue of the Hydra being one of the most famous monsters out there, so everyone should know about it and how it works, especially Grover, who's lived his whole life in the Greek world. Yet, they do the one thing they're not supposed to do. But let us not forget about the shoes that they really did not need Percy to wear. They still could have had Grover wear them instead. Though their nonsensical ending wouldn't have worked without it, would it? Why did they even stop at this diner? To reference the one in the book? At this point, they should have just kept going and had the report on the truck radio, which they use in a later scene. This is an insult on so many levels. The hotel is the best part of the movie. It isn't that loyal to the book, but it's able to be this bigger than logical sense that should be what everything is like. It's magical in a way nothing else feels like. The only real problem outside of the loyalty is that we spend too little time here. I will say that someone leaving a display car unlocked and leaving the keys inside makes no sense. Hey, Charon. You're not like the book and a little generic, but you're here. Oh, it's hell. How original, movie producers. An afterlife with a bad place suddenly means the entire thing is hell. That's so original and totally how the Underworld is depicted in Greek mythology. Great job, guys. Have a cookie. Yay, it's Hades. Oh no, it's Hades. You know, this explains why he looks like the devil. Because he lives in hell. Persephone told us, "What are you doing here, Persephone?" For those not in the know, Persephone shouldn't be here this time of year. She's supposed to be with her mom, so she doesn't turn the world into a permanent winter wonderland. And from what I've read, she also doesn't show up until the last book. This whole Underworld sucks, and there was no good reason to change so much. Also, does the Underworld have a lost and found? Because I lost my Kronos, and I'm not sure where to find him. What is there to say about the fight between Percy and Luke that I haven't already said elsewhere? I could go into how open and public the fight was, and there was no way they could keep any of that secret, and the movie never addresses that. I could complain about how Percy could have easily made his way to the elevator before Luke charged at him, and his turning back to glow is stupid. Comparing the book and how Percy was supposed to fight Ares on the other side of the country, and Luke reveals his betrayal later, almost actually killing Percy. Maybe I should mention how we didn't spend enough time with Luke to make his betrayal an actual backstabbing betrayal. We don't know Luke. He's just some guy at camp that we spent time with in too few scenes. That's okay though, because we have to focus on this God Council that doesn't do anything. It seems like no one was trying to stop the war at all. It looks like Athena was sleepwalking for a week and decided to say something in the literal last seconds. Oh, and how is Zeus? Percy had no idea about them, and he jumped to the conclusion that he stole the bolt. He made a law so his brother couldn't be a happy father, and it doesn't seem like he's going to make amends with anyone for being so wrong and starting a war. At least in the book, you know Zeus didn't know about Percy and jumped to conclusions when a forbidden child appeared. But he knew about him the whole time in the movie, and still made the huge leap in logic that Percy stole his bolt without any signs that Percy even knew about them. But at least Percy got to talk with Dad or something. Hey, we made it back to camp. Honestly, this movie should have ended in the last scene. The writing in this movie is a mess by itself without having to compare it to the book, but the book makes it look worse. There are so many reasons this story shouldn't have happened at all. They barely explore this world, and everyone in it is stupid. There are moments where the movie is fun, like with the casino, but those moments are too few and far between to carry this movie. I mean, I do find myself enjoying it in places, just not enough. I don't understand why they didn't stay with the tried and tested story that the book gave that inspired this movie in the first place. I'll give it a 9 out of 30. It was entertaining sometimes. Percy Jackson. I'll start off with the fact that Percy is supposed to care. It's a weird point, but it's true. He doesn't care about Brenner's tour at the beginning, he doesn't care about the camp or the people there, he doesn't care to learn anything about the Greek world, and he doesn't even care about the world ending. He only seems to care about saving the world after his mom shows up again. Maybe it's because he got the bolt. Brenner is his favorite teacher. He always tries his best in his class, and to live up to his expectations, he also tells others to shut up during that tour. Even though his life has been turned upside down and his mom is theoretically dead, he still put effort into camp, and he cares about the people there. He made friends who understood him. When Annabeth and Grover had problems along the way, he did his best to support them, and they did the same. Percy cares so much in the book that he decides to leave his mom to save the world with no real guarantee that he'll be able to get her back. The movie also takes away all the points Percy thinks or fights for himself. One of the only scenes that they do show is given to his dad guiding him. He doesn't get to figure out his mom is alive, he doesn't train, he doesn't protect anyone for the Chimera, no sleep time, and no Ares. This is nowhere near the same character. Annabeth Chase. The two major pieces of Annabeth's personality could be summed up as her want to see the world and her need to protect her friends. She learned as much as possible at camp to prepare herself for the world, and her need comes from a loss of a sister-like friend early in her life. When it came to Luke's betrayal, she's supposed to be hesitant to believe it and thinks he's good at heart for most of the series, but in the movie, she is ready to stab him the next time they meet. In the book, she's fully on board with staying in the Underworld with an angry Hades so Percy can save his mom. She barely knows him, and they just became friends. The most we get in the movie is her being crazy while hurting Percy, and they somehow end up in a relationship? Friendship? I don't know. She has always been fascinated by the world and the grand constructs out there created by her siblings, but she was stuck at camp and couldn't see them. She waited for years for someone like Percy to take her on a quest with them, and as an aspiring architect, one of the places she stopped to see was the Gateway Arch to admire it. Her wonder for the world never really stopped, and I personally think that this wonder helps her hold up the sky later on. In the movie, she doesn't have anything like this. As a side note, the movie also gives her no agency. She is literally dragged around in one scene. This is an insult to the character. Grover Underwood. In the previous two, you could see an attempt to revise the characters. Grover, on the other hand, is nothing even remotely like he's supposed to be. Grover is this fearful, well-intentioned wuss with dreams of healing the world. He wants to go on a journey that almost certainly leads to death that no one has ever come back from in the thousands of years since it started, just for the small chance it leads to the world healing. The movie makes him this libido-driven, hot-headed moron who doesn't add much. He seems to actively enjoy the things humans do to the planet's detriment and doesn't even hint at caring for nature. In the book, he offers to stay in the worst place imaginable so Percy can have his mom back. Meanwhile, he's pissing his non-existent pants at the thought of staying. The movie just made it his job. There was no sacrificing here. He is the second greatest insult here. Sally Jackson. Sally is a character who holds the title of the point of utter disrespect. I will admit that Sally doesn't do much in the first book outside of being a damsel, but we learn so much about her. Most of our knowledge comes from Percy and how he admires her and her strength. She has been through a lot. Dead family, loss of dreams, a distant lover and father of her child she can't rely on, all while raising a kid and marrying an abusive asshole just to keep that child safe. She gave up so much. So many tiny joys that get us through life, and she still got torn down beyond that. There are only two things that she never gave up and shared with Percy in the darkness: the color blue and her name. Her name is the last thing this movie takes from her in one unnecessary change, in one scene, in less than 2 seconds. Sally Ugliano. Chiron. Hashtag not my centaur. No, but really, what is this? Chiron is supposed to be this fatherly mentor to everyone at camp. To a small degree, they're his kids. He keeps secrets that weigh on him to protect them and will physically protect them as well. He is wise in the ways of how people, the gods, and the world work. He is the guy you go to if you feel lost. None of that is in the movie at all. He teaches nothing, and then at the end of the movie calls Percy his favorite student. He doesn't protect anyone from anything. He is an absolute moron who thinks the god of tangents will listen to what they have to say and not smite them on the spot. He is a danger to the kids. Luke. Another mentor with a brotherly twist. A car wreck of emotions for Annabeth, a generally cool dude, and a genuine friend. If you were to go to anyone other than Chiron, you would go to the head of the cabin that holds all newcomers for help. This is what makes his betrayal sideswipe us, but also lets us know he isn't betraying everyone for no good reason. We get hints of some dark past having to do with his father, and we learn of his hatred for the gods. His motive in the movie is almost completely different. In the movie, we see him fight one time, let Percy die slowly in front of him, give him shoes, and then try and kill the water boy himself. I don't even know why he was in the movie. He doesn't do anything, and he doesn't do anything he's supposed to. Dionysus. Our first one known to the mannerisms of the gods and how people feel about them. Generally a jerk you can't rely on who's been sent to look over camp as a punishment. Whose punishment? His or the campers? That's for you to decide. They decided to not have him in the movie at all. You can maybe spot him in the God Council at the end if you look hard enough. The Fates. Important to every Greek story, even if they don't feature. Don't make them angry. Oh, wait, there's no one to make angry here. But if you believe. The Oracle. Oh, hey, look, the mechanism for how camp gets all its quests and warns our heroes of potential dangers. In rhymes. Nowhere to be seen. Poseidon. Oh, no cool surfer dude who kept his distance for safety reasons? A secret revealing, hand-holding psychic absent father? I know the absence was because of a law, but he revealed that he could speak to Percy in his head, so where has he been the boy's whole life? Ares. One of the main antagonists for this book, who works for the big bad background antagonist, isn't here. Sure hope that wasn't a terrible, terrible choice. Hades. The angry uncle in Lord of the Dead that everyone is rightfully afraid of and respects to a degree. Well, all that he isn't here and is replaced by a heavy metal Lucifer, who doesn't have a decent relationship with his wife? Zeus. Other than some stupid dialogue choices, Zeus is okay. Kronos. The big bad of many generations, the first oppressor and eater of his own children. He ain't here. Sure hope they don't want to make a franchise out of this. It's like not including Voldemort. Clarice. The bully isn't here, and in fact, a good portion of personality is given to Annabeth during her introduction. Gabe. Gabe is Gabe. Not much to mess up here except for the type of abuse he gives out. He's still a terrible person who deserves to die. Argus. Security. Who needs it? Movie doesn't think we do. Charon. The cool Italian suit-wearing skeleton man at the entrance to the Underworld is just Death from Supernatural. Similar personality and everything. The Furies. Well, there was that one at the beginning. I say that one because she's not given a name and the movie would most definitely change it for no reason, but she and her sisters never showed up again. The Minotaur. Well, the 11th Dweller does what he's supposed to. Hellhound. A creature summoned by a traitor, but not summoned by this movie in the right place. Medusa. She's supposed to be more of a catch more flies with honey than vinegar type person, not this my snakes are going to fondle you person we got. She is Medusa though. Echidna / the Chimera. The original boy mom and the boy that could do no wrong do not appear. Instead, we get a replacement that only insults the series. Procrustes. The guy who inspires the fears of bedtimes, he's not here. Cerberus. The guard of the Underworld and the best fluff ball to grace existence is not at its post. The three-headed canine is replaced by the Hellhound, kinda. Hydra. Like I have said and alluded to many times, shouldn't be here and is not that appreciated. No donuts for us. Persephone. Not supposed to be here on 2 levels. She's not in the book and we don't see her for almost the whole series, and lore-wise, she's supposed to be with her mom this time of year. She also doesn't add much. The God Council. You could argue they took them from the 3rd book, and you could also argue they were pointless and didn't do anything. Only one of them spoke and the rest just sat around. Was Mr. Riordan involved with the making of this movie? No. Well, how much do we need the original creator involved anyway? The source is right there, already made, so do we really need them? Apparently, yes. Well, what did they do? Did they say, hey, come join us? Or did they say, get out of here, old man, we don't need you? Well, neither, actually. It seems as though they asked for his feedback, but when he gave it, they either didn't see it or straight up ignored it. Why you would ask someone for something and then never take it is beyond me. Maybe their time was worth too much. I don't know. How does our esteemed author feel about this movie? Let's see. My life's work going through a meat grinder. Well, that's at least a quote I see everywhere when I try and look up his opinion. Words can be interpreted in many ways, but that feels pretty definitive. Now if we add up all those points, we get an 8.9 out of 30 from the loyalty to the source material, a 9 out of 30 from the story being told, a 4.8 out of 30 from respect to the characters, a 0 out of 10 from the creator's involvement. We get a total of 22.7 out of 100. It's bad. It isn't a good adaptation or movie, really. It's stuck in a place that doesn't even allow it to be good in a vacuum. There are signs of a decent movie in here, the acting was pretty good, but the writing dragged it all down. Unfortunately, it is what it is. It could have been something great. Thank you for watching. This is my first video diving into the topic. I plan to cover other adaptations, but I will be going over the Percy Jackson show on Disney+. It's an easy carryover of information. Comment below about how we can improve, and things that you remember from the movie that you liked or bothered you. If you could leave a like, it would be much appreciated. Have a great day.